Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to Journey of Hope, the next stop on this wonderful Elgin classic pipe organ tour. So you are in for a treat. I heard a little bit of the warm-up just a little bit ago. It's a wonderful afternoon and a wonderful afternoon of music as we listen in. Just a couple of things for you. Just first of all, wanted to welcome you here to Journey of Hope. As you came in, you might have seen a basket there. We are taking a free will offering this afternoon for the concert. The free will offering, actually, Journey of Hope is very intentional about missions within the local area as well as regional and international. So our mission that we're going to offer the free will offering for today is actually going to go to Community United Methodist Church, the food pantry that they use, that they serve the community of South Elgin with. And so that is what we are doing. If you missed it on the way in and you want to do that on your way out this afternoon, it will be on the table in the back as you leave. But just wanted to welcome you here today. I am Pastor Jared. It's so good that you have joined us. We are live streaming this as well, so good afternoon to all of you who are joining us on the internet. But I'm going to just introduce to you one of our musicians, Jeffrey, as well as a couple of his friends. So I'm going to invite Jeffrey to come forward and let us begin.
Thank you. As Pastor Jared mentioned, this is the third stop on the Great Elgin Pipe Organ Tour. We started at First United Methodist in September, then at St. John's in October, and you're here now in November. Coming up in January will be Christ the Lord Lutheran, just down the street a little ways, and then we'll continue on with some more churches out here, and then working our way back into downtown, and then ending up at my church, First Congregational, in June for kind of the finale. The piece you just heard, Trumpet Tune in D by David Johnson, was performed on mostly the digital stops of this organ, including the digital tuba mirabilis, heard from both the speakers in the front and the antiphonal speakers way up in the back wall back up there. This trumpet tune is one of almost 24 trumpet tunes that Johnson wrote, along with a complete cycle of processionals built on a circle of fifths. Johnson, who was born in 1922 and died in 1987, began studying organ and composition at the Curtis Institute of Music, but then left to serve in the U.S. Army Signal Corps during World War II. After the war, he finished his studies with degrees from Trinity University, Texas, Syracuse University, and, I guess those were the two. Johnson then taught at St. Olaf College in Minnesota, back at Syracuse, and then also at Arizona State University. And that's where he remained until shortly before his death in '87. This trumpet tune in D is one of his most famous pieces. You might have heard it before as the opening and closing theme of the weekly radio show With Heart and Voice with host Peter Dubois. And it was also the first of two processionals used for the 1971 wedding of Richard Nixon's daughter Tricia in the White House Rose Garden, where it was actually performed by a string quartet, since obviously there's no organ in the Rose Garden. But the next piece is now going to use mostly the original pipe sounds of this organ, and it's truly one of Johann Sebastian Bach's masterpieces. The Passacaglia and Fugue in C minor was presumably composed early in Bach's career, likely while he was in his early 20s, and perhaps shortly after his return from Lübeck, where he had studied Buxtehude's ostinato works. A Passacaglia is a musical form that originated in early 17th century Spain and is still used today by composers. It was refined in the late 1620s by Italian composer Girolamo Frescobaldi, who transformed it into a series of continuous variations over an ostinato or a ground bass, which itself may go through variations. The ostinato is heard first in the pedals with no accompaniment, and then is followed by 20 different variations of amazing complexity and ingenuity, including some where the ostinato moves down from the pedals up into the hands and in the upper voices. Now, I imagine someone must have said to Bach, "Wow, I bet you can't top 20 variations." And he replied, "Ach ja, halt mein Bier," or "hold my beer," as they would say in German. So Bach follows the 20 variations with one, some consider to be the 21st variation, a fugue. And not just any fugue, but a double fugue, with the first half of the bass ostinato is used as the first subject, and then a transformed version of that second half is used as the second subject. Both subjects of the fugue are heard simultaneously in the beginning, and then a third subject, a counter subject, enters shortly thereafter. And so a fugue, of course, is a form where a subject is heard first in one voice, like the tenor, and then it comes in at the soprano, and the alto, and the bass, and so on, and then keep repeating through that. In this fugue, Bach so deftly manages not one, but three subjects, that when the subjects appear simultaneously, they never do so in the same combination of voices twice. Robert Schumann once described the Passacaglia fugue as intertwined so ingeniously that one can never cease to be amazed. So this is Bach's Passacaglia fugue in C minor.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Fry, and I see some familiar faces out here, so good to see you all. I think many of you might know me through my association with the Elgin Symphony, Chamber Music on the Fox, and Third Coast Brass. I just want to say thank you to Jeff Neufeld for inviting me to participate, along with Rachel Vavekis. And I'll have a little more to say during one of our next few pieces, but all I will say about the next piece by Franz Liszt, every time I tell one of my colleagues or anyone that knows anything about classical music that, yes, Franz Liszt wrote a piece for solo bass trombone and organ. It's not an arrangement. He actually wrote it for the solo bass trombone. I'm saying that because my instrument is kind of an odd instrument, and we don't have a lot of solo literature by some of the really famous composers. So this next piece that Liszt did write for bass trombone and organ, he based it on a very famous chorale, Heilig ist Gott der Vater, pardon my German, Holy is God the Father, and Jeff and I are going to do a very short performance of that chorale before we start Liszt Hosanna, which it is based on. So thank you for coming. Isn't that a great piece? I just love, I love all of Mozart's sacred choral works. They're just beyond amazing. So I'm just going to take just a real quick moment to update you about some concerts that Rachel and I have coming up. And don't worry about writing down dates. All you got to do is visit my website, visit Chamber Music on the Fox's website, and visit the website for Third Coast Brass. So a week from tomorrow, I will be performing with Chamber Music on the Fox at a Baker Church in St. Charles. I'll be performing again with organ, bass trombone and organ, and harpsichord. And some of my colleagues will be performing the very amazing Bach's Brandenburg Fifth Concerto. And then Rachel and I are amazing brass ensemble, Third Coast Brass, which I hope some of you have heard us before. If you haven't, you don't want to miss it. We have two very special Christmas concerts coming up in December, of course. First one's at Woodstock Opera House on December 6th, and then at the Epiphany Center for the Arts in Chicago, just west of downtown Chicago, on December 19th. Again, just go to Third Coast Brass's website. Then Rachel will be performing the amazing Brahms Horn Trio with some equally amazing colleagues with Chamber Music on the Fox. 3 different performances, including one here in Elgin on the 13th of January at Jeff's Church, FCC Elgin. You'll have 3 chances to see it at Woodstock, Elgin, and Aurora. And then finally, Rachel and I will be debuting our trio de Chat Noir, just Black Cat Trio, on Palm Sunday, again at FCC Elgin at 4 o'clock, April 13th. So again, don't worry about all those dates. I can't remember them myself. I have to look them up. So just visit our website. We hope to see you there. And so that's all. Thank you for coming. More music.
All right. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. It is such a treat for me, especially to be performing the Saint-Saëns, Camille Saint-Saëns, fancy French. He is, in fact, from Paris, France. He was born in 1835, and he didn't pass away until 1921, so he lived to be 86 years old. And he wrote so many wonderful things. I'm sure you've all heard of the wonderful, amazing Dance Macabre. That's very popular around Halloween time. It's a great piece. It's just like that, too. He also wrote The Carnival of the Animals, great piece, and my personal favorite, the Third Symphony, also known as the Organ Symphony. And I got to perform the third horn solo. It's not given to the first horn for some reason. Maybe they had beef or something. But he gave it to the third horn, and I got to perform that with the Williamsburg Symphony a few years back, and it was just a dream come true. Now this piece, it's actually unfinished, so we'll get to kind of the end. You'll hear it pick up, get a little faster, and then we'll stop and go back to the beginning. And people just made that up. They're like, well, I think we're going to do that. I mean, it's not finished, and it's a really great piece, and we want to play it anyway. So let's just give it a coda and call it a day. So I hope you enjoy this beautiful piece by Saint-Saëns.
So the next piece, the Lord's Prayer, I was actually starting to say the Lord's Prayer at one point during the chorale because I forgot the repeat that we had agreed to earlier. So, no, I think it was me. I'll take the blame. We're not perfect up here. The Lord's Prayer is a musical setting of the biblical Lord's Prayer, composed by Albert Hay Molot in 1935. And has been recorded by many notable singers. Molot was born in 1895 and died in 1964. He was an American pianist, organist, composer, and educator. His career as an organist began in Chicago, where he played for Silent Pictures, and he later concertized throughout the U.S. and Europe. During World War II, he held the rank of captain in the Special Services for 2 years while he toured with the USO and entertained troops in New Guinea, Australia, and Europe. Millant composed a number of film scores, including mostly uncredited music for animations from the Disney studios, but he is, of course, best remembered for his setting of the Lord's Prayer. The first 3 repeated notes of Albert's setting of the Lord's Prayer are among the most recognizable in church music. Although settings of this text from Matthew's Gospel are numerous, Millant captures both the intimacy of its petitions and the concluding grandeur of soaring praise before returning to a quiet Amen. Sung settings of the Lord's Prayer are not new to church hymnody. Hymnals have long included the prayer set to Gregorian chant, unmetered syllabic melodies, and multiple versions of the German hymn Vater unser im Himmelreich. According to his New York Times obituary, it said, Mr. Millant's musical setting of the Lord's Prayer was the first one that achieved popularity, although the prayer itself had been set many times before. Millant dedicated the song to baritone John Charles Thomas, whose radio performances first introduced it to the public. And the song, of course, has become ubiquitous at weddings, funerals, and memorials, often evoking deep emotional responses, like mezzo-soprano Denise Graves' performance at the 2001 service of National Prayer in Remembrance at Washington Cathedral following the September 11th terrorist attacks. You might have seen that when it was broadcast, and of course it's still on YouTube. But here now is the Lord's Prayer and Pastor Jared to sing for us.
Our Father,
So the final piece tonight, Caroline de Westminster, is the sixth piece in the third suite of Louis Viern's four-suite set, 24 Pieces of Fantasy, first published in 1927. The French organist and composer Louis Vierne was born in 1870 and died in 1937. He was born nearly blind due to congenital cataracts, but he showed an unusual gift for music at a very early age. In 1900, Vierne won the competition for the post of titular organist at Notre Dame de Paris, and he held that post until his death in 1937. The circumstances of Vierne's death were quite notable. On June 2, 1937, Vierne gave his 1,750th organ recital at Notre Dame. He completed the main concert, which members of the audience said showed him at his full powers. The closing section of the recital was to be two improvisations on submitted themes. He read the first theme in Braille, then selected the stops he would use for the improvisation. But he then suddenly pitched forward and fell off the bench as his foot hit the low E pedal of the organ. He lost consciousness as the single note echoed throughout the church. He had thus fulfilled his oft-stated lifelong dream to die at the console of the great organ of Notre Dame. Maurice Duruflé, another French organist and composer, was at his side at the time of his death. As indicated by the title, Caroline de Westminster is a fantasia on the Westminster chimes, which are heard hourly from the clock tower at the Palace of Westminster since 1858. And of course, the Palace of Westminster is the Parliament building, and the clock is Big Ben. The piece begins quietly, but with barely contained fire, as the chime theme is heard in the left hand. The theme then continues to be heard in a variety of keys and voice placements as the piece continues to build to a thrilling conclusion with a closing virtuosic pedal line. Now, while Vierne doesn't specify actual chimes or bells be used in this piece, he only intends to emulate them, I am making use of this organ's digital chime sounds at the beginning, which you'll hear coming from both the front speakers and the ones in the back. The full resources of this organ's digital sounds and pipes together will then be heard as the piece reaches its amazing conclusion. So this is the Caroline de Westminster by Vierne. Well, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you. We'll take a break for December because everyone has enough to do for Christmas, but hope to see you back in January at Christ the Lord Lutheran. Thank you for coming again.